Somehow, the first $10,000 is the hardest thing in life. Every penny feels like a sacrifice, every step forward a struggle. But, oddly enough, something changes after that point. It's as if the money starts working on its own, as if the game changes and everything starts flowing with less effort and more speed. Why does this happen? Why do so many people get stuck before reaching that amount, while others take off right after? There is a truth that is rarely told, one that changes everything about how to truly build wealth. And today, it's going to be revealed. If this type of content resonates with you, like it below and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. Now, let's get straight to what really matters. Nobody teaches you this in school, but the real money game starts when you cross the $10,000 line. Until then, what you're doing is not playing, but preparing. It's like an athlete who trains without knowing if he's going to the championship. You get up early, chase it, cut expenses, but at the end of the month, the money seems to evaporate. No matter how hard you try, the feeling is the same. You're running on sand. And here's the funny thing. Most people think the game starts when they get their first paycheck, or when they manage to save $1,000. But they haven't started anything yet. These initial values are too fragile to make a real difference. Money can't protect itself. It can't handle a scare, an emergency, a bad decision. Now, something special happens when you reach 5 digits. It's not just a question of numbers. It's psychological, it's mathematical, it's strategic. With $10,000 in hand, money gains density. It resists. It holds up. You're no longer counting every penny to see if it's enough. You start thinking about multiplying, instead of just surviving. And there's more. The world starts treating you differently. You see opportunities that didn't even appear on your radar before. You start seeing investments, business models, partnerships, not because the world has changed, but because now you have room. You have ammunition. And look how interesting. Even mistakes change their impact. Making a mistake with $200 can break you. Making a mistake with $10,000 well distributed teaches you without knocking you down. The room for maneuver is greater. You can experiment. You can explore. But here's the most serious part. This moment of 10,000 is not a destination. It's a portal. Those who see it as a mission accomplished get complacent and go back to zero. Those who see it as a real beginning take off. And the way you gather those first 10,000 with discipline, intelligence, and intention will dictate the speed of what comes next. Because this number doesn't just change your account, it changes your route. What really changes after the first $10,000 is not just the balance in the account, but the traction. Before that, each step is an immense effort. It's like pushing a car that's stopped on its own, up a hill. You sweat, you push, you try, but it barely moves. Financial traction is when that car starts to move on its own. The strength no longer comes from you alone. It comes from the money itself. And that changes everything. With $500 invested, even in the best investments, the gains are modest. You even see some growth, but it's like watching grass grow. Slow, almost invisible. Now, with 10,000 well-positioned, whether in stocks, bonds, funds, or businesses, compound interest stops being a pretty concept on paper and becomes a visible reality. They start to breathe. They gain rhythm, gain traction, and start generating money, without you being there all the time. And there's something curious here. It's not just about what money does for you. It's about how it changes your time. Before you hit 10K, your time is always being exchanged for money. You only earn money if you're awake, working, and executing. After you hit 10,000, your money starts working for you while you're working, or even while you're sleeping. That's the moment when you realize, wow, this can scale. This can go on without me. And here's a powerful idea. Financial traction also frees up your creativity, because when you're no longer in survival mode, you think better. You take smarter risks. You act more strategically. You're no longer reacting to the world. You're shaping your path. But there's one essential detail. Money alone doesn't guarantee traction. It needs direction. If the 10K is poorly allocated, it becomes an anchor, not a driving force. And this is where many people get lost. They think that just accumulating money is enough. But be careful. This only works if you know exactly where and how to put this money. Otherwise, it stops. Or worse, it goes backwards. The change doesn't just happen on your bank statement, it happens mainly inside your head. When someone crosses the $10,000 mark, it's not just the account. That goes up. It's your identity that changes. It's as if a new voice appears inside your mind and says, "If I can achieve this, I can achieve much more." This phrase may seem simple, but it completely changes the game. Because until then, many people live in a mental cycle of scarcity. Everything seems difficult, risky, out of reach. Decisions are made with fear, in a hurry, with anxiety. Now comes the curious point. With $10,000 saved, your brain starts to function differently. You're no longer reacting to emergencies. You start thinking long-term. You stop living on alert and start operating with vision. Science explains this. Studies show that financial scarcity activates the same brain areas in people that are linked to chronic stress. In other words, when your account is in the red or at its limit, your brain literally goes into survival mode. And this state blocks creativity, clarity, patience, everything you need to make good decisions. Now, guess what happens when this weight starts to lift? When there is a financial cushion, even if it is small, the brain deactivates the fight or flight mode and activates the strategy mode. It is at this point that ideas improve, calculations make more sense, and plans become more realistic. And there is more. Self-esteem also changes. Because the $10,000 did not come by chance. It came from decisions, effort, discipline, and the mind understands. I am capable. This type of self-confidence even changes the way you deal with others. You negotiate better. You say no more firmly. You don't accept just anything because you know you have options. And here is a powerful point. You begin to see money as a tool, not as a savior. It no longer defines who you are. It only enhances who you are already becoming. This psychological effect is so strong that even the way you view risks begins to change. What was once fear now becomes an opportunity with calculation. The mind evolves because it finally has space to think big. Reaching $10,000 is not a miracle. It is the result of silent behavior, almost invisible at first, consistency. And here is the curious part. Those who actually managed to accumulate this amount usually did nothing spectacular. They did the basics repeatedly, even when no one was looking. Consistency is what doesn't impress in the short term, but builds fortunes in the long term. It is the habit of investing every month, even if the amount is small. It is the care to spend less than you earn, even when temptation screams. It is saying no to what shines now, because you are aiming higher. Those who save $10,000 consistently do not need to reinvent the wheel to reach $100,000. What worked before, if maintained, only needs time and scale. And here is the domino effect. One small right decision, repeated, triggers another, and another. It is like aligning pieces millimeter by millimeter until the moment when all it takes is a slight push, and everything gains speed. Over time, the system feeds back into itself. You invest because you've seen results. You save because you know the impact it has. You refuse shortcuts because you understand that the path works. Now comes the warning. The same effect works in reverse. Those who lose consistency after 10,000 run the risk of seeing everything melt away, penny by penny. Because money without discipline is like water in a sieve. It leaks everywhere. It doesn't matter if you have 10,000, 50,000, or even more. If there is no solid behavior behind it, the account goes back to zero. And this is more common than it seems. Some people speed up in the initial phase, but relax as soon as they see the first result. They start spending as if they had already won. They stop monitoring. stop writing things down, stop taking care, and when they realize it, the domino effect has turned into an avalanche, but downwards. But the most impressive thing is this. Those who master consistency may even grow slowly at first, but they always go far, while those who disregard this habit can turn up to $50,000 into regret. Before you reach $10,000, the idea of living off passive income seems like a distant dream, or worse, a lie sold in online ads. It's like trying to pick fruit from a tree that hasn't even been planted yet. The amounts are too small to generate any consistent cash flow. You invest $100, $200, maybe $500, and at the end of the month you receive 0.42 cents. Frustrating, absolutely, but it's at this exact point that many people give up, not knowing that they're inches away from unlocking the real game. Because the truth is this: the door to passive income only starts to open when you cross $10,000. That's when financial instruments start to gain traction. Dividend stocks start to pay out amounts that you can notice. Real estate funds, REITs, ETFs with income distribution, all of this starts to make sense. It's not enough to retire on, of course, but it's enough to feel like your money is starting to work on its own. And here's the detail that no one talks about. This first passive income, no matter how small, changes your relationship with money. Because for the first time in your life, you see money coming in, without you having to be there, without spending hours of your day, without exchanging your life energy for dollars. This is the moment when the key turns. You no longer want to work just for money. You want to put money to work for you. But be careful. This is where many people get lost. They start falling into the traps of cheap marketing, promises of miraculous passive income, guaranteed earnings, obscure platforms that pay you every month. And what was supposed to be a step towards freedom turns into a leap straight into the hole. Real passive income is not fast nor sexy. It is slow, gradual, and deeply reliable if you know what you are doing. It won't pay your rent the first month, but it will build a foundation that, in a few years, can finance your entire life. Another important detail: passive income does not mean doing nothing. It means not depending on your direct effort. You still study, you still analyze, you still adjust, but now, money no longer needs you every second. But most people still make big mistakes here because they don't understand the difference between real passive income and empty promises. And this mistake can cost you everything you've built up to now. Having $10,000 sitting in your account seems safe, but in practice, it's a silent risk. It's like having a Ferrari in your garage and choosing to walk every day, even with a full tank. When used well, this amount can be the engine for something much bigger, but when it stagnates, it loses strength. Worse, it loses value, thanks to inflation that works tirelessly. That's why anyone who crosses the 5-digit line needs to change the way they view money. It's no longer just a reserve. It's a strategic resource, a silent worker that must be positioned where it can generate the most impact, the most return with risk control. Here are some smart decisions that can turn $10,000 into much more. Perfect for those who want exposure to promising sectors, technology, healthcare, clean energy, without depending on the success of a single company. It's diversification and potential for appreciation in one package. Stocks in solid companies with a history of appreciation. Here, the focus is stability with growth. Companies that have survived crises, that pay dividends regularly and continue to expand. They don't make you rich overnight, but they build real wealth over time. Automatic dividend reinvestment. The money that comes in goes back into the game. This creates a snowball effect. Small amounts reinvested today can turn into large sums in the future, all because you had the patience to let the process happen. Liquid reserve for opportunities. Not everything needs to be locked up. Having a portion in assets with quick liquidity allows you to take advantage of unique windows. A discounted stock, a sudden drop in the market, or even a good opportunity outside the stock market. And here's the secret. Those who have liquidity always buy at an advantage. Now, an essential point: balance. Investing is not about putting everything in one place. It's about knowing how much to put in each type of asset, according to your objective and appetite for risk. It's about making your money yield without losing sleep. And there's more. The first 10,000 also serve as a laboratory for decisions. You will learn to deal with volatility, with small losses, with the fear of selling too soon or waiting too long. This is the phase in which financial muscles are formed. What you train here will define how you will react when you have 100,000 or a million. But there is a silent mistake that makes many people lose everything, even after saving 10,000. And it has nothing to do with the investment itself. It has to do with ego, haste, and the illusion of control. Earning your first $10,000 is a huge victory, especially if it comes from effort, discipline, and difficult choices. But that's exactly why. This moment is dangerous, because along with the 5-digit balance comes something invisible and treacherous, the feeling that everything is fine now. The mind relaxes, focus disperses. Small slip-ups that seem harmless begin. A deserved expense here, an impulsive treat there, a risky investment just to test it out. And the most ironic thing, the smarter a person is, the more they believe they can control risk. But the market, consumption, and ego don't follow this logic. Many people go back to square one right after reaching $10,000. Why? Because they confuse the first step with the top of the ladder. And this ladder is long. There's a phrase that sums up this moment well. It's easy to get rich once. It's hard to stay rich. This is the point at which a person has enough to change their life. But they still don't have enough to make mistakes without consequences. That's why real winners do the opposite. When they reach 10,000, they don't spend anymore. They tighten up more. They use this achievement as a solid foundation, not as an excuse to relax. This is where the concept of financial anti-fragility comes in. It's not just about resisting falls. It's about getting stronger from them. And this only happens when you understand that the real game starts now. Remember, 10,000 is not a finish line. It's the beginning of the endurance test. This is where you need to build shields, an even clearer budget, a plan for future investments, an emotional reinforcement against the temptation of, "I've already achieved enough." This is where you separate those who stumble from those who climb, those who understand this. Start preparing for the next leap. $100,000. And the way you take care of the 10,000 defines whether the 100,000 will arrive or if it will continue to be just a distant dream. There is a rule that almost no one says out loud. But every experienced investor has already realized it. The first $10,000 are a battle. The next 90,000, an engineer. In the early stages, each dollar seems to cost a part of your soul. You trade time for pennies, turn down invitations, say no to immediate pleasures. It's all sweat, effort, sacrifice. But once this foundation is built, something changes profoundly. You are no longer saving money. You are building structure, and structure has power. Think of it this way. What took 2 years to save 10,000 can take only 12 months to become 100,000 if the system is working the right way. The secret is not to work 10 times more. It's to make the money work 10 times better. And this change requires 3 things that few people master. Automatic contribution system. Those who have structure know that they no longer depend on motivation. The money comes in and part of it is already programmed to invest, without thinking, without negotiating. It's the rule, long-term mindset. Every decision stops being about earning more now, and starts being about growing your wealth. The focus shifts from active income to building solid wealth. Avoiding noise and focusing on the plan, those who understand the 100K rule are not shaken by short-term news. They don't buy based on hype. They don't sell out of panic. They know that stability generates scale. And perhaps most importantly, The speed of growth increases as the structure improves. It's like accelerating a car on a straight road. The stronger the foundation, the faster the progress without getting off track. But this journey hides a subtle danger. In their eagerness to accelerate, many people try to take shortcuts. They believe in easy gains, absurd promises, and supposed magic leverage. But there is a type of leverage that is real, smart, and safe, and it can multiply your results without ruining everything. The key to reaching 100,000 is here. Mastering smart leverage. Not the one that promises you $1 million in a week, but the one that puts you a decade ahead in a real and sustainable way. When we talk about leverage, many people think of dangerous debts, unpayable loans, or insane financial bets. But the true leverage that truly changes lives is silent, strategic, and safe. It is not based on extreme risk. It is based on accumulated intelligence. And it starts with 3 invisible pillars that almost no one notices. Time with intention. Most people spend years just living. But those who understand the power of 10,000 start to live differently. Every free hour becomes an asset. It is time being used to learn, test, build. 1 less hour of Netflix can be 1 more hour developing something that generates income for years. This is the leverage of focus. Applied knowledge, not accumulated knowledge on its own, is just information. But when it is applied, even if imperfectly, it becomes leverage. A digital marketing course that allows you to create a business with almost no cost. A book about finance that changes the entire way of investing. A right video, at the right time, that unlocks an idea that has been stuck for years. The mind that knows more works less to earn more. This is the leverage of knowledge, the right network of connections. It's not about knowing famous people. It's about being surrounded by people who play the game of evolution. When you connect with those who are also growing, ideas multiply, opportunities arise, unexpected partnerships happen, exchange becomes a driving force. Those who hang out with those who spend. Those who hang out with those who build. This is the leverage of the environment. And when these 3 forces combine, something curious happens. Even without increasing active income much, assets start to rise. More ideas, more focus, more right decisions. It's as if life started to conspire in your favor, but in fact, it was you who changed the game. But there's one fundamental detail. All of this gets much easier after the first $10,000. And it's no coincidence. It's not just because money helps, but because there's a bigger and deeper reason behind this change. There is an invisible change that happens within those who cross the 10K mark, and it is this that opens the doors to the next level. What comes next is much more than money. This part hurts, but it's impossible to talk about money without facing a harsh truth. The system was designed to reward those who have already gotten out of trouble. It may seem cruel, but the logic behind it is simple. Risk is everything in the financial world, and those who are at or near zero are considered a greater risk, even if they are hardworking, punctual, disciplined. The system doesn't see that. It only sees numbers, and cold numbers have no empathy. Want an example? Someone with $200 in their account and an average score gets a card with a low limit, very high interest rates, and 0 benefits. On the other hand, someone with $10,000 saved, an active investment portfolio, and a clean history gets access to credit lines with very low rates, invitations to exclusive products, opportunities closed to the general public. It's not just a question of money. It's how the system classifies you, and this spreads in all directions. Loans with better interest rates, bank accounts with lower fees, investments with a minimum down payment, partnerships with platforms, brokers, and even businesses. More trust from others when closing contracts, partnerships, or collaborations. It's as if an invisible seal were stuck on you. This person is financially viable. And the most curious thing? Sometimes the difference between paying 20% interest, or 7%, between having access to a fund that yields 10% per year, or being stuck in a savings account that barely covers inflation, is simply the fact that you've crossed the 5 digits. Money, at this stage, starts to act like a passport. It doesn't guarantee everything, but it opens doors that were previously locked with 7 keys. And this changes the game completely, because the more access you have, the more growth accelerates. And when growth accelerates, time starts to play in your favor. Those who live in the cycle of scarcity waste too much time putting out fires. Those who enter the cycle of advantage start to build consistently. And this is the big twist that few realize. The 10,000 is not just money, it is a silent password. A code that takes you out of the most expensive part and takes you to the most strategic part of the system. The next block will show you what to do with it. There is a silent turning point in the world of finance. It's not when you buy your first car outright, or when your salary increases. It's when your money starts working harder than you do. This transition is almost imperceptible at first. You wake up and there are a few extra dollars in your account, a dividend that has dropped, a stock that has appreciated, an online business that has made money while you were sleeping. It seems like little, and it really is. But that little is the engine of freedom. With less than 10,000, this almost doesn't happen. Growth is slow, almost frustrating. You plant and reap crumbs. But when you get over 10,000 and start investing consciously, the gears turn. And the most fascinating thing? Each cycle generates a new push. Dividends are reinvested. Income is added to capital. Opportunities start coming to you instead of you chasing them all. It's like a bicycle. In the beginning, you have to pedal hard. But after a certain point, the movement builds momentum. The effort decreases. The speed increases. And the feeling of seeing your money grow without you carrying it all on your back is what starts to break the old paradigm. Work harder and harder to have less and less. But be careful. It's not automatic. It's not guaranteed. This machine only works if it's well calibrated. You need to know where to invest. You need to avoid traps. And, most importantly, you need to keep fueling the machine consistently, because just as it accelerates on its own, it can also stop at any moment if it's neglected. And there's something even more powerful happening behind all of this. Because what really changes isn't just your bank statement. It's the way you see yourself in the world. Something curious happens when you pass $10,000. The bills keep coming. The world outside continues to be demanding. But inside, something changes. Up until now, everything was an attempt. It was about putting out fires. It was improvisation, urgency, survival. But now, you start to see yourself differently. You stop being just someone who struggles to pay the month and become someone who has strategy, direction, and purpose. You stop chasing money and start attracting opportunities. You stop thinking only about today and start building for the coming years. You stop consuming to feel good and start investing to feel free. This transition is silent but powerful, and it is here that many people, even without realizing it, create their new financial identity. It's not about having $10,000 in the bank. It's about being someone capable of generating, maintaining, and multiplying that value. And that changes everything. It changes how you behave. It changes who you listen to. It changes who you hang out with. It even changes the places you go, both physically and mentally. The truth is that money gives you access, but it is this new identity that ensures that you keep climbing. Those who continue to think like survivors end up going back to square one. But those who internalize the role of wealth builder are never the same again. That is why the first 10,000 are not just a financial goal. They are an existential watershed. Living proof that you are no longer reacting to life, you are building your own. If this video made you think differently, if it helped you see the game with new eyes, like it and subscribe. There's still a lot of content coming here, especially if you have already understood that getting rich is not about luck. It is about identity. And the construction starts now.